We're really here today to talk about the DOJ TTF system. Our purpose in doing this project was to develop an enterprise data management system for the municipal trustees of the trust funds to file their MS-9 and MS-10 forms. Those are forms that are required by the Department of Revenue and the Department of Justice. This new solution will allow you to file them electronically, and the information will flow to both departments, so you'll no longer have to send hard copies in. We really had three goals in doing this. Number one, building a tool for the municipalities to file this information on an annual basis that would roll forward in time and eliminate the need for you to have to re-enter information year over year. Number two, a direct data import for financial institutions, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Essentially, this system allows you to upload files that meet a certain format or schema, and you can manage your information completely separately out of the system and then just upload the file every year, and that will allow you to submit to DOJ as well. And then number three was streamlining the DOJ side of this process. DOJ currently reviews all this information manually with pencil and paper, so it takes them a lot of time, and as you can imagine, having to review 250 documents for 250 MS-9s, 250 MS-10s, it leads to the likelihood of having errors when you do everything manually. What do we see as the benefits of the system? Number one, its primary design is to eliminate excessive data entry. The current DRA forms require that every year you re-enter all of your trust funds and investments. Really not an efficient use of anyone's time. So that was our first goal, is eliminating the excessive data entry. Two, developing a single filing portal for DOJ and DRA. So when you send your information through this portal, it goes to DOJ, and then continues on to DRA as well. A digital repository for municipalities, the ability to get back at old information and have it in one place. Obviously, trustees are come and go depending on what their terms are when they're voted in. So the ability to have a digital record of what transpired going forward from this point will allow future trustees to go back and understand what their predecessors did. The fourth thing is interoperability, really the ability to push information in and out of the system. And then finally, the accessibility and responsive design. The site is mobile friendly. This will work on an iPad, an iPhone, a desktop, a laptop, and it's designed to reorder itself based on what type of device you're on. And we're just going to go through some slides here, and then I will do a live demonstration as well. So this is kind of the underlying theory of the application. Everything starts here at the top of the screen. You update your ledger records, so you update all your MS-9 and 10 records. You take a snapshot of that information, and that goes to DOJ for review. And then all that information rolls forward into your next fiscal year, whether you file on calendar. When you roll the information forward, all you have to do from that point on is provide the delta, so any values that have changed, any new funds or new investments, and removing any funds or investments that have been sold or have expired. So the idea is to eliminate all that redundant data entry and give you a place where all of your records are presented to you each year, and you just have to make updates as necessary. So we use this term a ledger, and I know that has a specific term to many finance people, but essentially a ledger is just a table of records. And we'll go into the system in a minute, and here you can kind of see the responsive nature on your desktop. The system will look like this larger screenshot, and as you get into smaller devices, everything will reshuffle and reorder itself, so it's easily viewable on your device.
How do you turn this off?
So we'll go through some of the functionality in a minute when we log in. I won't spend too much time on the slides. So the important thing to understand is there are two ways information gets into the system. Number one, by direct data entry. So obviously in year one, you need to get all your funds and investments into the system, and we'll go through the process of how you would just data enter them. Your other option is to do a file import, and there's a standard schema which we have published and made available. We've communicated with almost all of the major financial providers. I'm sure there's some that aren't aware of the project, but Citizens, Cambridge Trust, and many other banks and financial institutions have been notified about this and provided with the schema so they can support their clients. You really have a few different flavors of what municipalities are doing with their trustee of trust funds. Number one, you have people who are really just keeping the money in the bank, not really doing much on the investing side, keeping it pretty vanilla and just reporting that. You have some municipalities that have retired finance people as trustees who are doing more advanced investing and have fairly complex forms that are preparing for themselves. And then finally, you have some municipalities who are working with financial institutions like Citizens or Cambridge Trust who are managing the money and preparing the forms for them each year. So those are really the three different flavors we're seeing of how municipalities deal with this information. So that's why we built the import process, because we know those of you who are using a financial institution, they have all this information already in a management system, so we wanted to make sure it could be easily imported into the system. Once records get into the system, you have the ability to view them, update them, add records, delete records, and then you go through an e-file submission process where you check a checkbox, type in your name, all that stuff. So why don't we get to the interesting part? I'm actually going to bring the software over now and we'll go through a demonstration. Okay, so I'm logged into our development server as a municipal user. So when you log in, this is your home page. This is what you're brought to. So you have a couple things going on here. Number one, if you have access to more than one entity, they'll show up here in this pick list. And number two, you have your available years. Obviously, right now, we're only operating in 2018. For the purposes of demonstration, we do have some 2017 records loaded in this instance. So on the dashboard or the home page, what we see is basically general information. This is our MS9. We haven't filed it yet. We have no records, and we haven't rolled it forward. This is our MS10. We haven't filed it yet. No records, haven't rolled it forward. To go into my ledger, I could click on either one of the blue buttons, or I could click on the items here on the left-hand side in the primary menu. This is your primary menu. It always displays. If you do reduce the size of your device, you'll notice the menu just hides itself up top here. So this has all the primary functionality that you need, including logout. The help will take you to our solutions page, which has a breakdown of step-by-step how do you walk through all the different parts of the program. So once again, that primary menu is always available to you. So why don't we jump into looking at a ledger. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to click on my MS9 button. And here I am on my ledger page. Obviously, I haven't created any records yet, so the table is blank. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and add a fund. I'll select the Add Fund button. The system will bring me to the Add Fund page. And it'll say, all right, well, what's the name of your fund? I'll call it the Test Fund. I'll put in my date of creation. Indicate how it's invested. It could be a CD, a checking account, common investment. Anything that's a common investment, obviously, will then have to have its individual pieces show up in the MS10. In this case, why don't I just say it's a checking account. The type of fund, I'll do a capital reserve. The purpose field, you'll notice there are a bunch of purposes identified already. One thing that we were cognizant of is that you can essentially create any type of capital reserve you want. So there was no ability for us as a team, a project team, so Axiomatic and the Department of Justice, to come up with a definitive list of all possible capital reserves. So if it fits into one of the predetermined purposes here, that's great. If you don't see a purpose that describes the use of the capital reserve fund, you can just select capital reserve other. Now, of course, for many of you, this is going to be, you're going to be entering funds that are from previous years. Obviously, this didn't just start today. You will have new funds potentially each year, but in this case, this is an old fund that was created in 1985. I also want to indicate my beginning of year balance, which is equal to my end of year balance. And that's something that'll come up in a few minutes. So we'll just say I have a $500 beginning of year balance. I select Save. Now the system is going to show me all the other fields I could enter, but for now I'm just going to select Save again and show you that I now have a record in my ledger. So the way ledger records work is you see the summary information listed up top, and if you click anywhere on the record, it expands. Now what it's showing you first off is your principal and income. So these are all the same fields that you're used to seeing on your MS9. So we can update those at any time. There are a few things we can do now at this point. I could leave this fund, log out, go do something else, come back later to it. I have three options within my fund. Number one is to edit the fund. And when we say edit fund, we mean purely the metadata about the fund, the name, how it's invested, the date of creation, etc. You have the option to attach instruments. So for many of you, let's say this is a new fund and I want to attach the warrant article from my select board that indicated the fund was being created. I could select, I want to add my instrument. I could browse for my file and I could save it. Oh, it wants a description. I'll put in a description, save it, and now you can see my file's attached. So if I want to go back to my trust fund, here we see it, or excuse me, my capital reserve. I expand my fund. If I go to instruments now, here's the instrument I attached, and I can view it just by selecting the view button. In this case, it was a map of New Mexico counties. So this is an optional process. No one's asking you to attach documents to these. These are purely for your own internal management. And it could be helpful as, like I said, future trustees come on board and they're trying to understand how things were done. Historically, this is a good mechanism to do that and track your information. Your attachments will roll forward year over year until you close a fund. So the final option we had was to update our values. If I select update values, it's going to allow me to add all the difference or the delta for this year. I can say, well, we did add $150 in new funds. We had $80 in withdrawals. And you can see as I'm doing that, my end of year fair value is calculating automatically. So at this point, I can say, all right, I'm good with this. I want to click save. My fund's updated accordingly. Let me show you how it would work if I were in a municipality that I would have rolled forward from the prior year. So this is one that records are already filled out in. So imagine it's a year from now, you took all the time in 2018 to build all your records and put everything together. It's now 2019, you want to go in and look at them. You'd select the MS9 Ledger button, and it would have all of your records in already. What it would also do is pre-populate all of your beginning of year balance records, because we know your beginning of year balance from last year's end of year balance. That's a hard rule of the system, is that whatever one year ends with, the next year begins with. So essentially what we're asking for users to do after year one is to go through their list of funds and say, all right, this is my EMS fund. I want to update the values. So we withdrew $5,000 from this fund. That's all we did. Now, if I want to just rapid fire go through and update my records, I don't have to save and go back to the home page or my ledger page every time. I can enter the information, click next. It'll bring my next record up. I could say, well, we had new funds in this account of $300. Next record. All right, this is my literary fund. We withdrew almost all the money, $1,900 withdrawn. So it allows you to rapid fire go through and make your updates year over year. So in year one, there is the lift of having to get all your records in, but once they're in the system, they're in, and all you have to do is make that change of the delta year over year. So a few different things here on this page. I can filter. I can say only show me my capital reserve funds. I can filter my purposes as well, and I can also search my names. So let's say I want to look for the police fund. I can type police in, hit search. It will show me just my police fund, and I can clear that search if I choose to. Also from this page, I can launch my MS9 report. It'll be in draft to begin with. When I click the MS9 button, it'll ask me if I want to do it in PDF, Word, or Excel. In this case, I'll say PDF, and the system will launch my PDF report. Okay. Here you can see my report has popped up. Notice that the first page has no trustees listed, and I'm going to come back to this in a second. On the second page and third page, you see here just our general MS9 report. So the system generates the report for you if you need to put it in your town report or something else that you're doing with it. Of course, we haven't submitted this to DOJ yet, so it's still saying it's draft because it hasn't. If I were to go back to 2017, my report would not have the draft watermark because I would have submitted it as an official report. So an important thing to note is that if you want to make sure the trustees' names appear on the form, when you're on your home page, you'll click the info button in the upper right-hand corner. And when you do that, number one, it's going to ask you to enter a hard copy mailing address. So if you hit the edit button, it'll allow you to add the information you want here. And that's basically the address where you want any correspondence sent, hard copy correspondence. Below it, you have the ability to go ahead and add trustees. So I can select the Add Trustee button. I will type in my name. I'm typing with one hand because I'm holding my phone with my other. I have different roles. I can be an alternate, a bookkeeper, a chairperson, or a trustee. I will be a trustee. I don't have to put in a phone or an email if I choose not to. And I can put in my term expiration, and I'll click Save. So now I'm listed here as a trustee. If I retire and they don't want me anymore, they'll just click here and delete me and remove me. The reason why this is important is because now if I go back and run my MS9 report, now you'll see that my name appears on the report. So that's where you're going to want to enter all your trustees so you make sure that they appear on the final report. Just going to jump over to the MS10 quickly. Sorry, I'm going to pick a different entity. The MS10 works the same exact way. There's no difference in the ledgers except for the fields that it asks for. In this case, I have the ability to add an investment. Name of investment, I'll just put in GE as a stock, and 50 shares, and the type. You can see there's a list of different investment types here. I'd say stock. Once again, I have the ability to update all of my details, but for now I'm going to wait on that. I'll click Save. If I click on it, it expands. I don't have the ability to attach any instruments to this, but I do have the ability to edit the investment, which will let me enter the metadata. And of course, I can update the values, which goes through the same value update process as before. One item I didn't touch on is if you need to delete an investment or a fund, you will click the delete investment or fund link. It'll ask you to provide a reason and an explanation. I'll click delete. Now the fund is gone. Just as a side note, we don't actually delete the record. It gets marked as deleted in the database. So if you accidentally delete something and you need it restored, you can send the support desk an email and we can restore it for you. Okay. So the next thing I want to go through is how do you import information? There are really two types of files. There's no brokerage and fees file. There's the MS9, the MS10. They follow a standard schema, which if you need the schema, please let us know. We can email it out to you. Essentially, there are three steps. You initiate the upload, you associate all of the records that you're uploading with records that are already in the system, and then you complete the upload process. So I want to show you that now. I'm going to pick a new entity. Here I am, obviously in year one, I don't have any records to match to. So I'll select the import file button. I'll say I want to browse. I have my MS9 file. I'll select continue. The system says I have one record that has an error in it. And it says you have 6 more records that you can go forward with, but be mindful the one has some kind of problem. And the one record might mean it's got that formatted incorrectly. So that tells us right away whether we have any issues and we want to stop. In this case, I want to go forward. And the reason was the value reserve fund does not match any available options. So there's actually an error in the record, and it will give you a brief explanation of why. If I select continue, the system's going to say there are no records available for matching. And that is correct in year one. You have no records in the system, so there's nothing to match against. It'll tell you how many records you're bringing in, how many matched old records, and how many were marked as closed. The system gives you the ability to download your current ledger in CSV format. We highly recommend that people download their ledger before uploading files because it allows you to back up your information. And then you can complete your import. So I want to show you how that process would work in an entity that already has information, what the match looks like. So I'm going to do this again in one of my test entities. Same error, same file. So now what happened is I had a bunch of records from last year in the system, and I imported this file. So the system is saying, here are all your existing funds and their values. Here is a list of things that matched out of the import file. So Green Grove Cemetery Fund, it matched. We had a beginning of year and end of year balance match, so we have all these green check marks. It means basically we're going to go ahead and update all these funds. The Fire EMS Fund didn't have a match. Now that could be because there is no record for it, it's a new fund, or because I just have something else going on and I say, I don't want to match it, just let me manually update it. Or I could say, you know what, this fund sold, or closed, in this case an investment would sell. You can say this fund no longer exists, I'm closing it, and this is how I'm indicating to you it's closed, and that's why it doesn't appear in this year's file. Then I can move ahead. It's going to ask me why it closed. I'm going to say court ordered. I'm going to say why. The court told me to. going to say, all right, you're bringing in one new record that you're closing, and you have 5 records you've matched. So when I complete the import process, now when I go back to my ledger, all of my records have been updated with my new information. So that is the ability with an import file, that you really all you have to do every year is update your information and hit the submit button. So if you use a financial institution, I would highly recommend this. If you're doing a lot of this manually now, and you have it in an Excel file, I strongly encourage you to send it to us, and we will try to manipulate the file and get it into the system for year 1, so then moving forward, you'll be able to roll your information. We really want to make this as minimally impactful on the users as possible as far as the time you need to spend to get your records in. Jump back over to my PowerPoint. We talked about updating values and printing draft forms, so I won't waste your time on that. So submission. Once you've gone through the process, you've updated everything, or you've imported a file and you're ready to submit, you'll go through the standard e-file submission. Once you submit, your ledger will be locked until DOJ finishes their review. If you submit and you say, oh man, I didn't mean to submit, I got to fix some things, you can either email the help desk or email DOJ, and either one of us can return the file back to you, and you can make any updates you need to. I'll go here to my MS9 ledger. I'll select the Submit Ledger button here in blue. When I do that, it's going to tell me up top that I have 6 records. This is my balance. This is the trustee that I have listed. I only have 1 listed, so only 1 will show up on my report. Obviously, no one has just 1 trustee. So what I'll do here is enter my name. The date's pre-filled, and then I want to check this box that basically says that I'm filing under penalties of perjury, and I'm filing on behalf of the municipality. So you can see the governing body of Alexandria. In that case, I'm in Alexandria right now. When I select submit, my information gets sent off to DOJ and DRA at this point. Like I said, you will be locked out of the system until DOJ completes their review. When their review is completed, you receive an email stating that. Now, if you notice, I'm back on the home page. My import file button went away because I can no longer import records because I'm frozen in 2018 right now. And that's why my status is review pending. When I select the MS9 Ledger button, I can go in and look at all of my information. I can't update anything right now. So everything's frozen until DOJ completes their review. I can go and export a report. Of course, this report no longer has the watermark, and this would be, a final report that I can provide to the town, to go on the town report, or, to put in my files, whatever I need to do with it. Okay. We talked about reports, credential management. So the way credentials work is we issue an administrator level credential, and my PowerPoint crashed again. Boy, I'm having a lot of trouble today. We issue an administrator level credential, and I'll leave it open like this just to minimize the likelihood of crashing. And that administrator account has full ability to submit, manage users, manage the ledger, upload files. That administrator account has the ability to manage all users within your municipality. You can create other administrators or create user accounts, So when we issue that one administrator account, and for many of you who are fiscal year filers, you've been receiving notifications, either your town managers or finance directors have been receiving notifications about it. It's really up to the municipality about how you want to administer your credentials, but we are providing that single administrator credential to usually someone who is a town employee, so a town administrator or finance director, and then they can create the sub-accounts for any trustees that are needed. For any financial preparers, you have the ability to have one login with access to many municipalities if you serve them. We do require that if you're a financial preparer and you want access to a municipality, that a municipal employee, usually either the administrator, a select board member, or the finance director, sends us an email saying that this financial institution is authorized to access the system. For Go Live, the site is live at NHTTF.org. The fiscal year filers date is 9/1. We're really hoping as many fiscal year filers are in the pool as possible. And to facilitate that, we're here at the technical support team, and we provide full technical support for the application at Axiomatic. That is our 800, our local number. We also have a toll free, and that is the help desk email, support@axiomatic.com. For questions that are more financial related How do I deal with the stock split and things of that nature? We recommend you still call DOJ. Terry is still there in a part-time capacity, and Audrey is still there as well. The other thing I want to mention about help and the help desk, if you click the help link, it takes you to our support page, as we talked about, with all this different information about the program. You can click on any of these articles, and they'll kind of step-by-step walk you through the process. Some of them have help videos that go along with them. So here's one of the MS9 Ledger, has a minute-long YouTube video that walks through the process, then step-by-step instructions. Also on this help page, you can submit a help desk ticket right from here, or check the status of your ticket, or call us on our 800 number.